I want to talk to Emily Schrader, who's an American-Israeli journalist, and see what her perspective is on the unfolding news story. Emily, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Where are you standing right now?
Hi, Vanessa. Great to be with you. You know, I have to say your timing is impeccable because just as you started to turn to me, the siren went off. I'm not sure if you can hear in the background, so I'm going to take you with me as I go back inside towards the shelter. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's been a busy day here in Israel. We've seen a number of sirens go off, warning of incoming missiles here in Israel. We haven't seen very many direct hits as of now. Hopefully it continues to be that way, but we have seen one just in the past couple of hours. And of course, throughout the Middle East, it's been absolutely chaotic throughout the day with multiple countries being hit by missiles fired by the Islamic Republic of Iran in response to this launch of the attacks that we saw this morning.
Talk about the existential threat that Iran poses to Israel and how it manifests itself in the region. Talk about the proxies and talk about Hezbollah and talk about what the effect and the kind of tentacles, really, you could say, of Iran are as they spread throughout the region. How does it work?
Well, for 47 years and counting, we've seen the Islamic Republic root their entire ideology, their entire foreign policy on the destruction not only of the state of Israel, but also the destruction of the West as a whole. And of course, that includes the United Kingdom, as we hear them chant from their parliament and from their rallies, their regime rallies. So that policy hasn't changed. It's only exacerbated over time. And we see that through their proxy strategy. The Houthis in Yemen, you have proxy militia forces in Iraq, you have forces in Syria that have taken over. You have Lebanon with Hezbollah. You have in the Gaza Strip, you have Hamas and Islamic Jihad. All of these funded, trained, armed by the Islamic regime in Iran, by the IRGC, which has taken billions of dollars from the people of Iran, whom they are also oppressing, and sent that money and resources abroad to fuel and export terrorism to other countries around the world. Of course, the state of Israel, but not only. This isn't Israel's fight. This is the entire Western world's fight. And that's something important to remember when we talk about the threat posed by the Islamic Republic. Yes, the nuclear program is one arm of that, but not only. We also know they were developing ICBMs capable of reaching the United States. In addition to that, we know they already possess some weapons that are capable of reaching Europe. And this is something that no one should stand for. This is a rogue regime, an illegitimate regime that just murdered 40,000 of their own people on the ground in Iran. And there's no reason whatsoever that we should continue to prop it up from the West.
What do you imagine is the end game for Benjamin Netanyahu? Obviously, to eradicate or go some way to eradicating the existential threat is obviously the fundamental part of it. But what is he envisaging when he talks about the people of Iran espousing freedom and independence and autonomy and liberation and all those sorts of things?
Well, it's important to note that this isn't something that's actually coming from the Israeli prime minister himself. This is something that's come from the people of Iran for many, many decades. And even prior to that, if we're looking at the relationship between Israel and Iranians, or even the Jewish community historically and Iranians, that's a very, very rich and close tie that has existed from the time of King Cyrus the Great in Iran until today. So there is a historical precedent for what we're seeing today. The prime minister is simply echoing the voice of the Iranian people when he speaks that way. And we actually heard it from the president of the United States today as well. This is something the Iranian people have been leading the charge on. That's why we saw those protests. That's why we saw them in 2022. And frankly, I think it's why we're going to continue to see them until such time as this regime and the IRGC in full is dismantled.
Some correspondents on the program so far this afternoon, Emily, have said this is not just a strike, and just is really in inverted commas, but this is not just a strike. This is war. Is that the way it's being seen in Israel? Do you see it that way?
I think absolutely. And it isn't something that Israelis view as new. I mean, if we look at October 7th, this is something that was financed and organized, at least in part, by the Islamic regime in Iran. Hamas is their formal proxy. And we've been dealing with this proxy war for many, many years, something that at certain times has posed existential threats to the state of Israel. And it's something that the Israeli government, no matter what one might think of that government, has not only a right but an obligation to push back against the Islamic regime in Iran, which is explicitly sworn to the state of Israel's destruction and all its inhabitants in it.
And so, as ever, these are complex matters, and, Israelis don't act as one and don't have one view. They have a myriad of different views, of course, because it's highly complex, just as Iranians have a myriad of different views. But what is the take on it today in Israel itself? I mean, among your friends, among the people you know, among professionals and politicians, what are people saying about this?
I think people knew that this was coming. It was to be expected, just a matter of time. And by and large, from left to right, the people that I know, that I've interacted with, and even that I've seen commenting, do recognize that this is something that needed to happen. Of course, it needed to happen for Israel's security across the board, again, right to left. But beyond that, it's also something that needs to happen for the region. This regime cannot continue doing what they're doing to their own people and to all the people of the Middle East, including the Arab states that currently are also being bombarded with ballistic missiles, as you just saw me run into a bomb shelter from just a few minutes ago. I mean, this is a threat to all of us here in the region. Arab, Jew, Muslim, doesn't matter what your religion are. This regime is a threat to everyone, and it needs to go. And the first people to tell you that are the Iranian people.
And Emily, those who liken this to Western intervention in Iraq and say it's inevitable that the result will be just as devastating, can you see where they're coming from on this? Or do you think this is a very different moment in history, a totally different country, a different regime, and just not a case of history repeating itself?
Well, it's important to remember when we compare to historical efforts for regime change that Iran is not the same historically or today. Iran is not an Arab country. It has a different infrastructure. It had a very successful model of self-governance prior to 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. And we do expect that it will go back to that in the near future, assuming that the country is free. Unlike Iraq, unlike Afghanistan, we have seen leadership in exile. We have seen Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the only figure that Iranians on the streets are actually calling to come back and to lead a transition. Important to note, not necessarily lead a government in the future. That will be decided only by the people, but to lead a transition. And this is something that everyone in the West should stand behind because it's a path to stability. Not only that, stability and freedom for Iranians. So it's important right now for the international community to show a strong support, I believe, for the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi as he oversees this transition. And we hopefully see the end of this deadly regime.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Emily Schrader there, American-Israeli journalist focusing on Israeli and Iranian relations.